What is my stellar XLM price prediction for 2025? I get that question every single day, and even though I think I've made it quite clear on the channel that I'm really quite excited about the project, people still wonder how excited I am. Now, for all of you that do not know, the coin we're talking about here is the 17th biggest crypto stellar XLM, right now sitting at roughly 45 cents, up basically nothing throughout the day and hour, but over the month is still up tremendously at 250%, and right now it's about halfway throughout its all-time high. It's still got a little bit to go, and I think that's where the entire fun of the story starts. As it currently stands, if we just quickly zoom out for XLM, we've done pretty damn well, but there's a couple key points to quickly point out. One is we didn't really get past any of the previous important levels. Not the one from 2021, not the one from 2017. So really, have we already done amazing? I'd say we've done pretty good for the start of a run, but if we were to extrapolate, I'd say that right now we've basically seen a spike, as back in 2020, we saw a spike towards the 20-cent level. We right now saw it towards the 50-cent level. And I always like to back it up with some additional charts. In this case here, the Bitcoin chart, but give it a second. First, I'll quickly say, if you also want to trade crypto like I'll be showing you in just a second, make sure you check out the link down below to either 𝗏𝗏 or maybe even 𝗕𝗓𝗓. They've both got different bonuses where the more you trade, the more you also get, or are able to spin or win, whatever. Just check them out. Links are down below. You could probably use it from anywhere in the world. If not, use a VPN. So to get into the trade I was just referring to, it actually is an interesting situation that we've got right now. XLM was one of the best performing coins in the entire top 100 throughout the last month or so. I mean, for the month of November, I think one that might have outperformed it was 𝗓𝗏, and maybe Peanut, a meme coin. But for the rest, I think XLM was number one. Right, and basically number 3 in the entirety, but it could have also been number 2, and I don't really consider meme coins in the list, so it was either number 1 or number 2. And you want to know the funniest thing? It's actually because it was so extremely undervalued that it most likely happened, but on the opposite side, it wasn't just an entire run for these ISO 20022 coins, which are just these coins in the, let's just call it the financial services ecosystem. But let me add here that even if we take a look at XLM now, first of all, it's come back down a lot since its peak. Not necessarily price-wise too much, even though it also did, but more importantly, relative strength-wise, relative price-wise. But I'll add to that then that right now, if I show you this chart of XLM versus Bitcoin, not in terms of dollars, but in terms of Bitcoin, I think many of you will understand why I keep saying that it's so extremely undervalued right now. Let's take a little bit of a look, shall we? So as it currently stands, XLM has basically been going down in terms of dominance versus Bitcoin for years now. You see 2019 was basically the point where everything started crumbling down. Even in 2021, it did okay, but that was basically the last peak that it made, and it was nowhere near the peak that it was able to make in 2018, like nowhere near at all. As it currently stands, we are still, let's just quickly go ahead and check it. We're still roughly 300% away from the 2021 high levels, but if we were to go all the way back to 2018, we're about a 16x or so. You should always add 1, by the way. Whenever I say a 16x away, it's actually the current price plus that, as this means 1600% increase, so it ends up being a 17x. In my head, I often do it, but when I say it, I often forget to say it, so I'm just quickly pointing that out. As obviously 100% gains is not a 1x, it's a 2x, right? And so getting to this spot right here is also going from about 400 Satoshi to about 650 Satoshi. So again, this would be a 4x, even though it says plus or 300%. I often forget that little step, so I wanted to add it here real quick. Anyway, so from that perspective, when you consider XLM versus Bitcoin, really, hasn't done much this run just quite yet. Yes, it's up pretty significantly from the bottom, I think. Let's just quickly zoom in a little bit because I think it's done pretty well. It is in 1 month up. Let's quickly see here. It says on the, you guys can't see it perfectly, but it says right there, it's up 316% throughout this 1 month versus Bitcoin. And then right now it's come down about 21% or so within this month, but still relative. We've got a long journey ahead of us, guys. Even if we just were to take the highest closing points of the months, that's still about a 2.5x from here, or about a 150% increase. But I'm personally thinking, man, 2021, a lot of coins like XRP had some immense pressure from the SEC. And for that reason, a lot of the other ISO coins also were under deep scrutiny and pressure, but specifically XLM, because it's kind of like XRP's little brother. Same founder, at least to some extent. And from that perspective, I also think that this run, since XRP is doing so well, and will probably go past some of its old heights, that XLM is going to suffer a similar fate, and so perhaps the 2021 run can kind of be ignored a little bit, and we should just more so focus on the 2017 run, see what it was able to do back then. If we take, for example, the highest monthly close, it's about let's just say it's about a 10x, if not slightly more from here, which is absolutely massive. But then also, if we just take a look at the price top back then, right, let's just call it about, what are we going to call it, 60 cents? Even though the highest point ever recorded apparently was actually 93, the same day that XRP hit its all-time high, if we consider that level, and then about a 3x from there, so let's just call it about slightly lower than $3, or about an 8x, let's say, from here. Actually more to, let's call it an 8-9x from here, because I'm thinking, well, if we actually just take ourselves with the Bitcoin value, from Bitcoin going back to some of the 2017 levels would actually put things in a way crazier spot. And again, this is not considering the dollar value even, because this is relative strength to Bitcoin. And why is this more important than just the XLM price on its own? Well, because right now, to get back to previous prices in 2017, it's only like doubling or so, US dollar wise. But Bitcoin in the meantime has grown from 19,000 to 100,000. So Bitcoin has also done a 5x in that time frame. So theoretically speaking, you'd have been better off just buying Bitcoin than buying any of these alts. And for the most part, that does make sense in a bear run, but not in a bull run. And that's why we often like to look back and say, hey, you know what? That is just to get back to previous all-time high, okay. But there's also got to kind of catch up to Bitcoin off of. And then from that, on top of that, it also needs to do a run on its own. So let's just say as a baseline, I always expect coins to do about a 2-3x or so from the previous all-time highs as the baseline, because that's usually what Bitcoin does. But to skip all that, you could just basically look only, like I just said, the coin denominated in Bitcoin terms. So this right here, about a 10, let's just do it slightly lower, right? Let's just say right here, about a 9 or so x maybe from current prices is like the baseline, what we would like to see. If you're being really conservative, you say about a 4x or so to go back to the 2021 levels, but let's just say about a 9x or so from here as a baseline, just so it's not worse than Bitcoin. Then from there, funny enough, if Bitcoin also this run is able to do about a 3x, that would be a 9x and a 3x, so about a 27x here perhaps still for XLM, with peak scenarios being obviously way higher. But I try to be conservative here by saying, you know what, as a base case, going back to some of the higher points of 2021, let's just say it will be about 4 times as pricey as it is right now. So let's just say from 50 cents, I know it's lower, but let's just say from 50 cents to about $2. But then if Bitcoin also is able to do some greatness here, go to 250,000, 300,000, let's say, we could put XLM at a $6, $5-6 target, which would be my minimum, like base case for XLM, because we're taking this now in a really conservative manner. I know Bitcoin could also end up at 180,000, but even then I still think that this dominance wise is just way too low for where we're going to end this run, because I kind of believe we should ignore most of what happened in 2021 because of the Ripple lawsuit, and so we should be significantly higher. But again, I'm just saying that to be like very conservative. Then again, honest price expectations are more towards the 10x or so based on previous dominance, and then a crazy run from there. There's also another idea that XLM could, I'm not saying this will happen, I'm saying it could, overtake a lot more of the other coins as dominance, and so relatively actually go way beyond what it did in the past. It just depends on hype, just depends on excitement, but this is just a base scenario from what we've seen in the past. Some coins never get back to it though, but if we take, for example, a coin like 𝗓𝗂. Relatively, this coin has already done a lot of damage recovery. Relative to coins like XLM, in this case with 𝗓𝗂, the highest point realistically is about, I'm going to say about 200% in gains away. So it's at about a 3x. You can see how relatively then from that perspective, 𝗓𝗂 is a lot less undervalued versus Bitcoin than coins like Cardano, which from this point right now still have about, to the highest point, let's say 500%, so 6x, or this highest point back in 2018, about an 8.5x, let's say. Or again, looking at Solana. Solana is again also a lot less undervalued, as it's only about a 2x or so from here. Or XRP, which also has a crazy journey still to go to some of the previous high points. In this case here, 1100% in the top scenario, 1200% in terms of gains, or about the middle would also be about a 5 or 6 maybe x. That's also the scenario that XLM is in, I think, as of this point. Anyway, right now we are seeing a breakout though, so it's interesting. A break of the structure that has formed over the past couple of years of only downside. Is the first month now that just ended that we're finally above it. And I wonder how we're going to pace from here, because the trend has now turned from just mostly downwards, downwards, downwards to hopefully from here on forward, mostly upwards, upwards, upwards. But all I can say about it is we shall see. I just personally think XLM is really quite undervalued here. And now hopefully you get a good understanding of why. I could talk about tech. I could talk about all the underlying prospects in that regard, but I don't think it's even necessary. So yeah, that was my bear case, my worst case. There's obviously really optimal scenarios I could start explaining to you all here, but I think this is good enough for now. If you enjoyed it, make sure you press that like button. If you agree, let me know down below. And more importantly, make sure you put the notification bell on so you never miss out on another crypto video.